Hey everyone, this is Jody Vesley here again with the Heartway Pastor and Missionary Caregiver Podcast. We are in Season 5, Episode 6. Season 5 is our episode series of episodes on making decisions. And today, this episode is really about this situation of limbo, is what we're titling this time. And the most difficult part about making decisions is when you're in a state of confusion. You don't know which way to go. You don't have open doors or clarity on open doors. You may have closed doors. During this part of the decision-making phase, you might just give up. You might just throw in the towel. However, I believe if you stick through this time, you can grow so much in your relationship with God and in your spiritual maturity than you ever thought you could have previously. So let this be of encouragement to you if you are in a state of limbo in making a decision. I know several who are currently in this decision making phase in this situation. Well, I'll be praying for you. That's it for today. I'm just kidding. This is here we need to realize that we're going to be in this phase at some point, if not multiple times in our lives, in our Christian lives, when we don't know where to go. We don't feel like we have clarity. We aren't sure what doors are open, or we don't see any open doors, or God's closing the doors we thought may have been open doors. And so you end up in this state of limbo and confusion. And so coupled with the other episodes of the season, I can do my best for this episode specifically to paint what this period of limbo and decision-making might look like for you, so that you know you aren't going crazy, and you know that God hasn't given up on you or misled you. And you know that eventually this period will come to an end, whether you give up or stick through this time. And of course, my encouragement to you is that of biblical encouragement, that you stick through this time and you don't give up. That you keep pursuing God and following God even through this state of confusion, even through this state of seeming darkness, because you don't have a light pointing you which way to go to and making that apparent to you. So let's start in Song of Solomon. Starting in chapter 3 in Song of Solomon, the first two verses, it says, "In my bed at night, I sought the one I love. I sought him, but did not find him. I will arise now and go about the city, through the streets and the plazas. I will seek the one I love. I sought him, but did not find him." So just take a moment and dwell on those verses. Put yourself for a second in this position and think about the times you have sought God, but didn't find him. Think about the times you prayed to him, but you haven't yet received an answer to those prayers. Take some comfort in knowing that you aren't the only one. Many who stick with the faith and follow Christ end up going through these times at some points in their life where you seek God and you do not find him. You seek direction and you do not find it. You seek an answer to a prayer and you don't get that answer in the time that you're looking for. Those times can bring us closer to him over time, even if we don't find him in the moment. Maybe some sin is hindering us. Maybe God just wants us to learn something. Maybe these are things that we can seek out, and maybe God's developing some patience in us. Maybe he's growing our faith through this time of waiting and lack of clarity, through this season of limbo. The next scripture I want us to go to is Psalm 51. Let's look at the first 10 verses. For the choir director, a Davidic psalm when Nathan the prophet came to him after he had gone to Bathsheba. Verse 1, Be gracious to me, God, according to your faithful love, according to your abundant compassion. Blot out my rebellion, wash away my guilt, and cleanse me from my sin. For I am conscious of my rebellion, and my sin is always before me. Against you, you alone, I have sinned and done this evil in your sight. So you are right when you pass sentence. You are blameless when you judge. Indeed, I was guilty when I was born. I was sinful when my mother conceived me. Surely you desire integrity in the inner self, and you teach me wisdom deep within. Purify me with hyssop, and I will be clean. Wash me, and I will be whiter than snow. Let me hear joy and gladness. Let the bones you have crushed rejoice. Turn your face away from my sins and blot out my guilt. God, create a clean heart for me and renew a steadfast spirit within me. David had just sinned and sinned big, and he was going through grief and prayed to God to create a clean heart for him. Remember when I said earlier that you can grow so much in your relationship with God if you stick it out through this time of limbo? Well, sometimes God is allowing us to go through a time of limbo to do some spiritual surgery on us. And it usually takes some time for us to soften our hearts to be changed. It doesn't oftentimes happen just boom, like that. It can take a while for us to soften our hearts and allow ourselves to be molded and formed and transformed by God. I think if we are in a moment of limbo, we may need to do some log work, right? That's a good time to do some log work. We can take some personality tests and we can do some self-assessments to see where God might be trying to work on us and not be so hard-hearted. I recommend the True Colors personality test and looking at, from that, how others see you and how you react under stress. It can be very enlightening and humbling. I haven't been through a self-assessment, but going to doctors and counselors can be helpful in addition to maybe looking at some things like the Stadia assessment if you're looking to go on a mission field, or something like DNA, an assessment tool through MTM, which is a missionary training ministry. If you're aware of that, and that's in the American Baptist Association. Anyways, doing some log work can soften our hearts. So I encourage you to listen to that podcast episode if you haven't already. The next scripture I want us to go to is Hebrews chapter 5, verses 12 through 14. Although by this time you ought to be teachers, you need someone to teach you the basic principles of God's revelation again. You need milk, not solid food. Now, everyone who lives on milk is inexperienced with the message about righteousness, because he is an infant. But solid food is for the mature, for those whose senses have been trained to distinguish between good and evil. At some point, we transition in our spiritual lives, hopefully, between being immature and being able to only handle milk to needing and being able to handle solid food. This time of limbo in your decision making could be God prepping you to handle some solid food. Here's the thing. If you're being called to missions and don't know where to go, or God isn't opening that door yet to a specific field, the reason may be God is teaching you some things. Because when you go to where God has called you and represent him as a messenger or missionary, you start seeing and experiencing some things that might confuse you and lead you to going a different direction. At one point, I was at a BMA church who said they kept losing their Russian missionaries to the Orthodox faith. Of course, these were Russian natives, but the reality is missionaries can lose their faith if they aren't spiritually mature. So maybe we are going through this time of limbo for God to grow us spiritually. So Ephesians 4:14 says, "Let us be mature men of God and not little children, tossed by the waves and blown around by every wind of teaching, by human cunning with cleverness and the techniques of deceit." I think in this time you can ask God what he is trying to teach you and seek to know him more through study, prayer, and obedience. I can't tell you exactly what your time in limbo is going to look like or how long it's going to continue. If you think others don't understand and you are just completely frustrated, I want to encourage you to express yourself to God. Like in the Psalms, right? I also want you to think on the life of Job and how uh, even though he went through a completely awful time and he probably didn't know what was happening. He didn't know what was happening completely. He didn't understand that and what to do about it. But things ended up working out very, very well for him in the end. So, the milk, if you don't know, the milk is just the lighter topics of the Bible, and the meat is the deeper things. And so, before we can understand the deeper things, we need to be able to understand the lighter things, and then we need to be obedient to that and follow that and trust that. And as we're obedient, follow and trust, over time, our spiritual maturity grows, and we can understand some of these deeper things in the Bible that before we may have just read over, and we didn't see the same way that we can see now as we grow in our spiritual maturity. So to conclude, if you are in limbo when it comes to making a decision, know you're not alone, and that you can and should share your feelings with God. Take it as a time of self-reflection and softening your heart to God. Use it as a time to do some log work. Realize that God might be trying to teach you something, and that you just need to keep studying, praying, and being obedient. And don't give up. Don't give up. Because God's blessing for sticking through this time will be so much better than you could have ever realized. If you'd like some encouragement or counsel during a season of limbo, again, don't hesitate to reach out. If not to someone else, to us here at Heartway, Pastor and Missionary Caregivers, my wife Gabby and I. This is our calling to do this and to be there for those in ministry or those seeking to be in ministry and their families. And and that doesn't describe you, but you're listening to this podcast, we might still be able to help you, or if not, connect you and connect you with someone who can and point you in the right direction and help you with that process. And so just know you're not alone. And I just want to encourage you not to give up, because so many give up when they're in these difficult times. They get discouraged, they lose faith, they get disheartened, and they give up, and they don't stick it out. And they lose out on so many spiritual blessings when that happens. And so don't let that be you. Or if you have done that, if you're like, man, I did give up, there's an opportunity to jump back in and start, again, being obedient to God, seeking him out, following him, following his will, and he'll open up some doors at the right time and make things clear to you at the right time. But you got to be active in doing that. Okay. Until next time, this has been the Heartway Pastor and Missionary Caregiver podcast, where we seek to help with issues at the source.